Tensions between Canada and the United States have reached a new high, with a new development adding fuel to the fire. British Columbia has made a bold proposal to impose tolls on Alaska-bound commercial trucks, a move that has caught many by surprise. This proposal is part of a broader economic standoff which was initially sparked by President Donald Trump's repeated tariff threats against Canadian exports like dairy and lumber. These tariffs have been a point of contention for quite some time, causing ripples across various sectors. British Columbia's tolls are more than just a provincial policy. They're a direct response to what many Canadians see as economic aggression from the US. The tolls are intended to send a strong message that Canada will not back down easily. Alaska now finds itself caught in the crossfire, with vital supply chains at risk of disruption. The state relies heavily on these routes for the transportation of essential goods, and any disruption could have significant consequences. The daily lives of Alaskans, who depend on these routes for essential goods, could be significantly affected. From groceries to medical supplies, the impact could be far-reaching and deeply felt in these communities. The situation is complex, involving legal, logistic, and diplomatic challenges for both countries. Navigating these challenges will require careful negotiation and strategic planning from both sides. The proposed tolls are a symbol of Canada's determination to defend its economic interests and assert its sovereignty. This move underscores the importance of standing firm in the face of external pressures. As the story unfolds, the roles of government and industry on both sides of the border are under intense scrutiny. Every action taken by officials and business leaders will be closely watched and analyzed. The stakes are high, and every decision could reverberate across industries and communities. The outcome of this confrontation could set a precedent for future trade relations between the two countries. Understanding the motivations and potential outcomes of this bold move is crucial as the situation develops. Stakeholders on both sides are keenly aware that the decisions made now will have long-lasting impacts. The current standoff began with President Trump's threats to impose steep tariffs on Canadian exports, especially dairy and lumber. Trump's administration has twice floated a 25% tariff, citing unfair trade practices. This escalation has provoked strong reactions from Canadian leaders who see the tariffs as a direct threat to their economy and sovereignty. Canada and the US share one of the world's largest trading partnerships, making these moves especially consequential. In response, Canada is exploring a range of retaliatory measures to protect its industries and send a clear message to Washington. The situation has galvanized public opinion in Canada, turning the dispute into a test of national resolve. The delicate balance between national interests and vital economic relationships is now front and center. British Columbia's proposal to impose tolls on commercial trucks heading to Alaska marks a significant escalation in the ongoing trade dispute between Canada and the United States. This move is seen as a bold response to recent US trade actions that have impacted Canadian industries, and it's drawing attention from both sides of the border. Premier David Eby's initiative is designed to put economic pressure on the US by leveraging BC's strategic position in the North American supply chain. By targeting the vital overland routes that connect the lower 48 states to Alaska, the province hopes to send a clear message about the importance of fair trade practices. Supporters of the proposal argue that the tolls are a necessary step to protect Canadian interests and jobs, especially in light of what they see as unfair US policies. They believe that taking a firm stand now could help secure better terms for Canadian businesses in the future. However, critics warn that such a move could disrupt established trade routes, leading to delays, increased costs, and uncertainty for businesses on both sides of the border. They caution that the economic fallout could be significant, especially for industries that rely on seamless cross-border transportation. Alaska, which is heavily reliant on overland routes through British Columbia for the delivery of goods and essential supplies, could face serious economic consequences if the tolls are implemented. The state's remote location makes it particularly vulnerable to disruptions in its supply chain. Implementing the tolls would require significant investment in new infrastructure, including the construction of toll booths and updated signage along key routes. This process could take months or even years, and would likely involve coordination between multiple government agencies. Legislative changes would also be necessary, adding another layer of complexity to the plan. Lawmakers would need to debate and pass new regulations, and there could be legal challenges from affected businesses or even from the US government. Legal hurdles loom large as international agreements like NAFTA or the USMCA may restrict the imposition of tolls on certain cross-border routes. Navigating these legal frameworks will be a major challenge for the province. Still, the proposal signals a more assertive Canadian approach to defending its economic interests and standing up to perceived trade injustices. It reflects growing frustration with the current state of cross-border relations. Ultimately, the tolls are a double-edged sword, with the potential to impact both countries' economies. As the debate continues, all eyes are on British Columbia to see whether this bold proposal will move forward or spark new negotiations. Canada's response to US tariff threats goes beyond BC's tolls, with a coordinated national strategy taking shape. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced retaliatory tariffs, signaling Canada's readiness to escalate if necessary. Ontario has imposed a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the US, further intensifying the standoff. Provincial liquor stores have been instructed to stop selling alcohol from Republican-led states, including Alaska, a move both symbolic and practical. These actions reflect growing public support in Canada for strong measures against perceived US aggression. Canada's multifaceted approach demonstrates a willingness to engage in economic brinkmanship. The focus remains on protecting national interests while navigating a complex trade landscape. The proposed tolls have sparked major concerns about Alaska's supply chain. While most freight arrives by sea, high-value and time-sensitive goods like fresh produce and oil industry supplies depend on road transport through Canada. The Alaska Trucking Association warns that tolls will drive up costs and ultimately raise prices for consumers. Business leaders fear added financial burdens and potential delays in delivery. In a state already challenged by harsh geography, any disruption could have serious consequences for food security and energy stability. The oil industry, vital to Alaska's economy, is especially vulnerable to supply chain interruptions. Alaskan leaders are urging restraint and diplomatic solutions in response to the toll proposal. Governor Mike Dunleavy has called for dialogue between both federal governments, hoping to avoid unilateral actions. The business community echoes these concerns, warning of economic fallout if the tolls proceed. State Senator Robert Myers, a commercial trucker, notes that while tolls are technically feasible, they could set a dangerous precedent for future trade barriers. The debate highlights the need to balance national interests with the importance of seamless cross-border trade. Alaska's response underscores the complexity and high stakes of the situation. Other Canadian provinces are joining the pushback against US tariffs, broadening the scope of economic retaliation. Yukon Premier Ranj Pillai has halted government purchases of American products and restricted US firms from government contracts. Symbolic gestures like calls to ban Alaska athletes from regional events reflect the cultural dimensions of the dispute. In Ontario, Premier Doug Ford's surcharge on electricity exports is designed to pressure US markets and highlight the province's strategic role. These diverse strategies show how Canadian leaders are leveraging both economic and symbolic measures. The trade impasse is now a national issue, with provinces taking coordinated action. Implementing tolls on Alaska-bound trucks is fraught with logistical and legal challenges. British Columbia lacks the necessary infrastructure, requiring major investments and legislative changes. International agreements may prohibit tolls on certain routes, raising questions about the plan's legality. The process will be time-consuming and costly, with potential for contentious legal battles. The complexity of these challenges highlights the delicate balance of power and diplomacy in international trade. Success will depend on resolving these issues while maintaining cross-border cooperation. Beyond tolls, Canadian leaders are actively exploring a range of other countermeasures in response to the US border toll proposal. One significant option under consideration involves targeting the cruise ship industry, particularly those vessels that, under US law, are required to make stops in British Columbia while en route to Alaska. This move is seen as a way to leverage Canada's strategic geographic position and exert economic pressure in a sector that is highly dependent on cross-border cooperation. Disrupting this sector could have major economic consequences for both countries. Nearly 2 million cruise passengers are expected to visit Alaska next summer, and many of these journeys rely on seamless passage through Canadian ports. Any restrictions or new regulations could ripple through the tourism industry, affecting not only cruise lines but also local businesses, workers, and communities that depend on this seasonal influx of visitors. In addition to economic measures, cultural and political gestures are emerging as forms of protest. For example, some Canadian communities have discussed excluding Americans from regional festivals and public events. These actions, while symbolic, reflect a broader sentiment of resistance and frustration within Canada, highlighting the deep emotional and cultural ties that are now being tested by the dispute. The stakes for US-Canada relations are undeniably high. With billions of dollars in trade and countless jobs on the line, any escalation could lead to significant economic disruption on both sides of the border. The interconnectedness of the two economies means that actions taken by one country can quickly impact the other, making cooperation essential. This evolving dispute underscores the complexity of international trade, where policy decisions, legal frameworks, and cultural values all intersect. Navigating these challenges requires not only economic calculations, but also diplomatic skill and mutual understanding. Ultimately, the outcome of this standoff will help shape the future of trade and cooperation between these two close allies. The decisions made in the coming months could set important precedents for how cross-border disputes are managed in the years ahead. As policymakers on both sides navigate this challenging landscape, careful negotiation and open dialogue will be key to preserving the vital economic and social ties that bind the US and Canada together. The resolution of this impasse will have lasting implications for both nations, shaping not only their economic futures but also the spirit of partnership that has long defined their relationship.